Thank you very much, Program Director. And as I did say earlier on, that we will stand on the protocol that has been established. The Deputy President, the Honorable Minister, who has since left us, the SGU is still here, who is not necessarily youth, but a trusted ally of young people. And you guys will hear that when he gives his presentation. All of the young people gathered here today, all of the different generations that have been here today, and that's why I believe that this moment that we have characterized as a G20 moment is so important because it precisely speaks to the importance of different generations having these conversations. Now, as young people, we often like to think that we have all the answers. And we do have great ideas, but our elders also have very insightful experience. And it's through those innovative ideas, the experience that we learn from them, that, as the young lady earlier on said, that we will build together. Okay. That we will build together. So let me start by congratulating the NYDA. This morning I was saying to the Deputy Chairperson that, yeah, one can see that she wants to exit with a bang. For this amazing opportunity and this very important discussion, but also the fact that you've brought young people of school-going age, young people who are government officials. I've seen some of them here. Young people who are industry leaders. We've seen some of them. Young people who run their own organizations. Young people who run their own companies. Young people who are experts in different fields. Young people who are politicians, and all of the rich collective that we find ourselves here today. And I think the one thing that this conversation since this morning has affirmed is really that the hour of youth has struck. And when we say that the hour of youth has struck, it really then means that even when we speak about something as important as G20, we can't speak about G20 without thinking about the influence, the participation, engagement, and the shaping of young people in that conversation. Now, this G20 moment, and I'm going to, in my head, the G20 moment is the whole of 2025. Because when we are done with this G20 moment, the question that we should be able to answer is, while we are the fortunate to be at the Sandton Convention Center, but how does this G20 moment change the lives of our neighbors in Makai? So when we are done and we've had the Leaders Summit, and we're done here today, and we take all the nice pictures, and we're all proud of ourselves, and then we have the Leaders Summit. I think you guys are having Y20 as well at some point, Karabo, and all of that. How does Umama, who's my next door neighbor in Uppington, how has her life changed? And I think for me, that's the challenge for all of us. So as we engage in our different sectors, in our different societies, in our different areas of influence, because it's a room of influences, right? All of us here, we're all influenced in our different spaces. But the most important, because at the end of the day, and I always say this to my team, that that I can't quantify, I don't do. If I can't tell you how this is going to change her life, I'm not going to do it, because then we're just wasting time. We're wasting precious time that we don't have as a nation. 31 years into democracy, 70 years since the Freedom Charter that we were celebrating yesterday. Most importantly is, how do we use the opportunities that we've gotten, the platforms that we've gotten as young people to make a meaningful change? Because yes, we can say we want to build our country together, and that's important. But what is that building? And I think that's the challenge I want to start with here today in the conversations that are going to unfold. We've made the statement in the opening address that says young people want to build our country together, but let's be able to define, what are we building? How does it look like? And what do we want to achieve? Now, this roundtable, ladies and gentlemen, for me, provides us with an opportunity, as I said, to shape our future, and we're doing so through dialogue. And it's so important that we do so through dialogue, precisely because the young people that came before us, the ones that ensured that we have the democracy that we speak about today, shaped their future, but they did that through bloodshed. So the other challenge, therefore, as we are engaging in this dialogue, is that by us not betraying their sacrifice, because we can't betray their sacrifice. There are young people that died, our age, and people that are younger than us that died. So therefore, when we engage in the next couple of hours, and we do that through dialogue, it becomes so important that this consensus of ours speaks to issues that really affect our world today. And what are those issues? We are all aware of the problem that we have of economic stagnation, inequality, climate change that is causing havoc all over the country. We've seen the floods, we've seen what's happened in the Eastern Cape and KZN over the last couple of years, and most importantly, youth exclusion. Now, youth exclusion is it's such a fundamental thing. I always say, I don't see them, I saw Kanakana here earlier on today, I always say to them, when they have these SIAC events of theirs, and I always ask them, like, beyond yourselves as former VET students and us as the elite, how are our programs benefiting those that are excluded from these platforms? Because otherwise it's just us and our friends having these conversations. So we have to talk about youth exclusion. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, in keeping with our theme for today, South Africa's approach to solidarity is not rhetorical. It is real, it's institutional, it's programmatic, and most importantly, it is intergenerational. And we express this through our flagship programs, based in the presidency that I'm going to speak about a little bit, that aim to realign our economy and state around inclusion, dignity, and the opportunities that our peers need. One of the most transformative interventions in addressing youth unemployment is, of course, the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative that the Deputy President alluded to earlier on. And I just want to speak about this a little bit because we often find that, this program was introduced in 2020. And since we came into office, we actually find that a lot of young people are actually not even aware of the many opportunities that exist for them. And some of what we have to do is to bring awareness to young people to be able to access those opportunities because they do exist and there's so much of it. Now, the PYEI operates through various implementing partners, which includes the Department of Basic Education, Higher Education, Training, Trade and Industry, Competition, Employment and Labor, as well, of course, as our partners in the private sector space, as well as non-governmental organizations. Now, again, as the DP said earlier on, since inception, this program has been able to benefit 1.7 million young people through livelihoods, through opportunities for livelihoods since its inception. A very important platform, and I hope that we do have them here today, Karabo, is the SA Youth team, which really is a platform that was created by the South African government that is really intended to be a one-stop shop for any and everything youth-related. It has information about how to access business funding opportunities, how to access job placement opportunities, how to write a CV for those who've never been able to write a CV. You go on, it's zero-rated, you don't have to have data for it, and it's really created to ensure that our young people that are seated in our rural areas are able to go on there and access these opportunities that are meant for them. Now, I'm not going to go into the numbers of what we've done so far, but I wanted to speak about one aspect of this particular program that I myself think is so important, because often we speak about 1.7 million young people or opportunities created. In the year 2024, we've had 76,500 earning opportunities created for young people. But what we also find when we go into our communities for most of these young people is that they finish school, they access internships, and after that, after 6 months, they're back at home. Or they go, they do a skills program, after 12 months, they're back at home. Because what many of our private partners that we've also realized do is because, remember, there's a lot of money in skilling. So there's a lot of money in skilling. Government pumps up so much money. You can just look at all of the CETAs. I know that there are some chairpersons of our CETAs and some representatives from our different CETAs here today. There's so much money that government invests into skilling young people. But the point is that once you've skilled a young person, you want them to be able to use that skill for a means to be able to become economically active. So what we've done through the Department of Trade and Industry, through a fund that is actually administered by the Department of Trade and Industry, it's called the Jobs Boost Program, which is part of the Presidential Employment Intervention. And what the Jobs Boost Program does, is currently in its pilot phase, but the idea of that is to ensure that at the time a young person enters into a skilling program, a job is already guaranteed for them. Because that's what you want. You want to be able to pair a young person not just with the skill, but with the job. And it's an outcomes-based fund that focuses on how you track the young person from the time they enter into the program to the time at which they are placed in employment. Because that's the only way that we are going to change the very scary numbers that the SG is going to give you when he speaks a bit later. And how does it work? So it works with, so the implementing partners, which is all of the different skills development and skills training partners, they only get 80%. At the inception of the intake of young people, they get 20% of their funding, and the 80% is only paid out at the time at which a young person has been in a job, not paid for by government, but paid for by the employer for a minimum of 6 months. And the reason that we're doing that, and we're hoping to upscale it in the next year, is precisely because we don't just want temporary placements. We want quality jobs defined by duration of a young person in a job, income level, and most importantly, the potential growth. Because what we've also found is that, often we have these numbers and we give the president the numbers, the deputy president the numbers, and SONA, they have these big numbers. And then when you ask, what jobs are these? And then you're told a young person is placed in a call center. Now, no disrespect to young people working in call centers, but we want young people to be placed in jobs where there's opportunity for growth. That's what's most important. So even if they start out at a call, for example, I started out my working career, look, I've worked, my first job was at a car wash, by the way, I was 16. And I think my second job was was as an intern as a tutor on campus. But my point is that from that one job that you give the young person, what's the potential for growth in it? Even within the public sector, the one big debate right now that's happening in the public sector is the progression of young people even within the public sector. So how do we change the face of the public service, right? In the context that if you look at your DGs, do we have any DGs below the age of 40, for an example? I don't think so, right? Do we have a DGs below the age of 45? I also don't think so. I stand to be corrected. But the point is that when we say that you start as government, and the previous executives of the NYDA was very successful in introducing the scrapping of entry-level work for young people, entry-level work for young people, of course, but the important point is, how does that young person who enters into the public service having scrapped entry-level work end up being a DG in 10 to 15 years' time? Because that's what we want to see. Because that's how you're going to change the face of the public service. But also linked to that is to ensure that you also change the gender of the public service. If you look at your DGs, how many of them are women? If you look at your DDGs, how many of them are women? So linked to changing the face in terms of the age ratio also is how do you change the gender of the public service. Now, these are just, of course, some of the few things that I wanted to mention. And of course, we know that the NYDA, who are, of course, our host today, continues to play a pivotal role in enabling youth participation in the economy and society meaningfully. And I want to also, I hope that, I don't know if we have an NYDA speaker, um, that you will be able to tell us, Deputy Chair, um, how are we responding to youth that are not based in urban centers? I remember there was a point in time where we said we have to have an NYDA office in every town. I don't know if we have the budget for that, but where we don't have an office, how do we ensure that young people in towns where there aren't offices, like the town that I come from, there's no office of the NYDA there, just so you know. But how do we ensure that young people from those towns are able to get the same opportunities that those that are in our urban centers are seated with? Now, one of the things that this seventh administration, has prioritized, you would know that we are, of course, have a government of national unity right now. And the first priority of the government of national unity is inclusive growth and job creation. And what we also know is that we are not going to achieve inclusive growth and job creation if we do not partner with the various institutions that are here today. Therefore, the importance of partnerships becomes pivotal in the work that we do. Now, the social solidarity that we embark on with these partnerships is critical to is a critical vehicle for lifting us out of the economic difficulties we face and to ensure that our growth efforts are inclusive and representative of all sectors. Spurring on our growth efforts is government's Operation Vulindlela Phase 2. Now, those that are not familiar with Operation Vulindlela, it's also a program that is coordinated out of the presidency, that's also part of the work that I am responsible for. And it really is about unlocking the various reforms in different sectors of our society to ensure that we have the much needed growth that we need. This initiative streamlines and accelerates cross-cutting economic and service delivery platforms. In phase 1, we unlocked renewable energy investment, opened up spectrum licensing, modernized ports, and improved water licensing. So, colleagues, the fact that we don't have load shedding right now, or that it's been reduced, the fact that the cost of data has come down, the fact that we have better entries to our ports, all of that is work of Operation Vulindlela Phase 1, which also started in 2020, and is actually we are now in Phase 2, which targets housing that will be located near jobs, municipal service reforms. We know that as government, it doesn't matter what we do at a national level, if we don't fix our municipalities, the services don't get to those that are intended. Of course, looking at digital transformation, one of the speakers that spoke about here, I think again it was the lady, the formidable, very articulate young lady who spoke, welcoming us this morning, spoke about the digital economy and digital transformation and access to that digital economy as an economy of the future. These reforms dismantle systematic barriers and help unlock youth participation in in a dynamic economy. From an emphasis of early childhood development to initiatives such as the National Youth Service, to promotion of volunteering as part of building individual character and civic involvement, a new generation of differently empowered young people is emerging. And I just want to speak about the National Youth Service a little bit, because I do think that we do undermine the importance of this service. I was speaking somewhere in Cape Town earlier on in the week at a youth expo that we were having, and I was saying that we are never going to change that 46% number of young people when we do not give back to our communities. Very important. We might take it for granted, the importance of the National Youth Service, but it is so fundamental to give our time to uplifting on our communities. I'm so happy everywhere I go interacting with young people who've decided that instead of sitting at home and being on TikTok, as one of the ladies said, they actually take their time to help other young people in giving that service. And of course, we thank the NYDA for streamlining that particular program, but also ensuring that young people do get a small stipend to be able to help them with transport, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, the needs, dreams, and searches for opportunity among South Africa's young people are the needs, dreams, and searches at play in every country in the world, including members of the G20. And I'm sure as well as China, as the gentleman said, who's joining us from that particular country. Indeed, particularly in the G20, given the large-scale immigration of mainly young people from countries perceived as offering low opportunities to countries viewed as places where dreams come true. And I'd like to believe that South Africa is one of those countries. In sending and receiving nations alike, solidarity must be our sustainable response. In the lens through which we must design policy, measure outcomes, and sustain hope. Now, before I take my seat, the next speaker is the SG of StatsSA, who I'm told is going to be giving us a picture of the plight of youth in our country. I'm sure, colleagues, you would have seen that there's a raging debate by some CEO of some bank that I hope no one banks with was here. I'm joking. Suggesting that the actual rate of unemployment in South Africa might be 10%. And we've seen different people participating in that particular debate. And I hope, SG, that you do clarify that, because we can't allow a situation where a debate ensues in our country that seeks to stifle what we try to do. Because the moment we try to change the definition of unemployment, we're actually fooling ourselves, because then government will not be able to adequately respond to the measure of the crisis that we are faced with. Now imagine thinking that you're responding to something that is 46% as opposed to 10%. Your policies are altered. Everything else that you do, the budgeting, everything else that you do is altered towards those numbers. So the importance of us ensuring that we continue to use credible methods of our data collection and the dissemination of our statistics that's done by StatsSA is so important to inform the policies that we come up with as government, but also most importantly, the budget that then follows those policies. So colleagues, let's not be fooled by attempts to having us have non-debates in South Africa. However, as the DP said, as I'm about to sit down, we must do more. And we must do more faster, and we must do more together. I'm going to repeat that. We must do more faster, and we must do more together. I thank you very much. Ooh.
Thank you so much for that honest engagement.